Alright, big thing from last night was, I think, breaking down big things. Like what you can do, how to approach it, stuff like that. Another thing that was talked about is, you mentioned like figuring out like what the best picking pattern would be. And of course I talked about how, well, if you're trying to get maximum speed, you just keep it as simple as possible. If you just after a downstroke, you're going to do an upstroke. After that upstroke, you're going to do a downstroke. Just down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Instead of concerning yourself with how you're going to slant your pick at the beginning, just start playing the notes. Start going through it. Work it up slow as it's talked about in that metronome method ebook. And then see where issues start to happen. Because how you play at your slow speed is not going to be the same as how you play at the fast speed. Mechanics will change, and learning how you can start to blend those mechanics, I feel, is quite important in order to be able to play more things. So if you want to have the ability to play anything that you want, you're definitely going to want to get used to blending slow picking versus medium pace picking, and then fast picking, and so on. So, one reason why I've talked about, if it's a downbeat, start with a downstroke. Just do that. This way you're always used to doing it the same way again and again and again and again and again. Repetition is huge in getting these things down. So, the first thing, working on something like this, just again, this is just reviewing what we discussed, just so you can have it as like a reference point. It's like, yeah, you mentioned like doing like a bar at a time. Definitely a good idea. But if you want to take it even further, like the furthest back, that would be a good plan. You basically go play one beat, and then you hit the first note of the next beat, and you kind of play it that way for beat to beat to beat. So you're gonna end up hitting this note again. So you let this note last a quarter note when you're really breaking it down into small pieces. So you go here to here, and then here to here, here to here, here to here. So, just to make sure it's nice and clear what we're talking about. Should sound something like this. Let's try that again. And then bump that up 5, just kind of keep going faster and faster with that. And just keep taking it up again until you can't go any faster with it. And for getting a big thing like this down, yeah, just like a bar at a time is totally fine to do. And as you let's see, as far as like making like a big practice plan out of this, I mean, you could definitely break this into many pieces and get a lot out of it. So you could do that approach, going like beat to beat for the first bar, and then you take it until maybe like 3 days in a row you're not making any progress. Well, then you do the same thing with this bar, and then same thing with this. You could also do like a bar each day, depending on how quickly you want to learn the whole thing. And that's just something to do if you need to break it down any further, because maybe just working here to here is enough. Just work that up from 60 up as fast as you can. So yeah, things like that are good. So like I talked about breaking down the Gilbert stuff. So in terms of breaking that down, again, if you want to get the most out of this stuff, absolutely take it to at least 240 with those eighth note triplets. And just because you get to a point where you're having a hard time hearing the metronome is definitely not a good reason to slow it down and then do 6 notes a beat. because I mean you were trying to cram in a bunch of notes very fast at fast tempos. You really want to be able to hear a fast click and be able to lock onto that thing. So it's in your best interest. Just start getting used to hearing a 200 beat per minute click. Get used to the 205, used to the 210, and all that stuff. So, because you want to be able to pick up on those things really, really quick, and it'll help you divide the beats up into all kinds of different subdivisions much better. So, yeah, at least 240 with eighth note triplets before you start messing around with the sextuplets. Sometimes going faster than 240 is a good idea. Sometimes going to at least 250 or 260 before you end up going back down. And a lot of times, even if I've gotten something up to that, like 240, 250 with eighth note triplets, and then I come back and start trying to do sextuplets right away, I notice it just falls apart, like around 110, 115 for, I guess I just didn't have enough practice with it, so I go back and do the eighth note triplets instead. So it's just kind of a, you gotta check your ego when doing this stuff. I do it with my stuff, even if I don't like it, I do it anyway because I'd rather make progress. Just like, you know, with weight training, sometimes you gotta check your ego, lower the weight, get that form correct before you end up hurting yourself. So yeah, if like, even again, if I got something up to the, you know, the 240, 250 range, and then I go try and double the subdivision, thinking that, okay, well, I made it to this speed with the slower subdivision, now let's see what happens with the faster subdivision. If it ends up falling apart, it's like, all right, well, there you go. Sometimes that happens, and it's better to work it up slow again in order to develop better mechanics. So anyway, so like with the Gilbert thing, like doing 2 strings at a time makes sense. This way you get the full down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Well, like the whole like down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And just work on that. So that would be it right there. So instead of working on the whole thing right away, hang on. There we go. I did eighth notes instead of triplets. And sometimes doing the eighth notes instead of triplets is also a good idea. Yeah, instead of doing all this, and again, this is if you need to break it down. I don't think you really need to. Maybe just break it, the going up and coming back down in half type thing. But just so you have an idea, it's doing something like that of going. It's like, yeah, just like 2 strings at a time, and then you hit the note that would begin the next 6-note sequence, let that ring a quarter note. You can break down even further, you know, just maybe go like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then bump that up. So having very short things to work on is a good idea too, because then you can really push your speed. So usually it's easier to do like a very tiny amount of notes versus a whole bunch of them. Yeah, then once you can do that, okay, then you put like maybe half of it. So instead of going 6 notes and then let the next note ring a quarter note, do this. So something like that could work. Obviously, that would mean you have to stop there because, well, going up to the next thing would be kind of breaking away from the pattern. What the heck am I talking about? This is what I mean. 1, 2. You go up those 3 strings there. Those 3 strings, well, then to keep doing the same amount of strings in a row, you'd have to start coming back down. But that's an okay thing to do too. So just thinking about things like that. So when you're going up, and this is talked about in the book too, a lot of times I would go half speed. So let's say after you've done your work and gotten your eighth note triplets up to at least 240, let's say you're back to the sextuplets at 120, which is the equivalent. And let's say, you know, you're having trouble with whatever part. So instead of constantly just going, and the mistakes keep happening, take a few runs going half time. So again, like maybe 2 or 3, where it's like that, and then go back into the... So it kind of like helps get your mind back, or like refocused on what you're trying to do. Another thing is, like even at the same speed you're stuck at, is then you can like break it down into those small pieces, like... Breaking things down like that as you're while you're at a fast speed, I mean, can be beneficial, and just kind of helping your mind get used to playing at that fast speed. So hopefully all that makes sense. All this stuff is talked about in that ebook. So there you go, some strategies and breaking things down. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. If you can email me before next week, or if you want to write down some questions, bring them in next week. That works too. So yeah, I got you in at Wednesday at 3. We'll stick with that for the rest of the month. And I will see you again on Wednesday.